Right, so we're going to have a look at the next in the abstraction series at Anthony Gerace. Here we can see it's these sort of vintage images that have been gridded and then sections taken away from them, quite generously taken away from them. How are we going to do that today? So I've got this image that I've taken offline, and the next thing I did was Google black and white grid, and from there I have then copied this black and white grid and stretched it out over my person, which is here. Now, next. Now, once you've copied that grid out and put it into your Photoshop document and you've stretched it out to the size that you want, you need to then delete out all of the sort of white section of the grid. And how are you going to do that? Well, there's a few ways in which you can do it. But I actually want my grid to be white. You can leave it as black and then just skip this next step, but I want the lines in between the images to be white. So on this layer, I am going to press Control and press I, and that will invert it, making the selection black. Then I am going to go to Select and then Color Range, and then I'm going to select. I'm going to press the little dabber on the black, and you can see if I press it on the white, it'll change in the display screen. So I need to select the black, and then when I press OK, it is now selected out all of the black squares in that grid. And then I'm going to press delete. And then I'm going to press Control and D to deselect that. Now, one of the things you need to be aware of is that quite often with these ones you get offline, it does leave a little black line around the edges, which makes it a little bit more difficult when getting rid of sections of the picture from underneath. So what I tend to do is zoom right in, select the white area, and you can see now it's selected using Magic Wand selection. Magic Wand select tool. It's selected all of the white and it's not selected that little ridge. Once I've selected all of the white inside, there's two ways you could do this. You could select inverse and then delete the excess, or you can duplicate that. I actually might just duplicate it because it might be a bit easier. And then I'm going to unsee the layer that I just stole that from, and I'm going to move that further back. So I now have my little white grid and my picture that's visible underneath it. Now, you do need an image where you can expose background underneath it quite easily. Now, on this image, I'm just going to unlock that background so I can move that up. On this image, I've currently, for some reason, got it set to purple, but I want to mimic this sort of background we've got here. Now, this one is white, moving into sort of a grey tone. So it could be quite abstracting that you just select a colour that would appear from sections that you've deleted. That's also fine. But on this one, I particularly want it to sort of somewhat match. So I'm going to use brush tool on 100%. It's on a soft brush. It's currently on white. So on this background layer, that currently is purple, which you can see if you look at the layers table. I'm going to do half of it in that white, and that should appear now on here. Give that a moment to load, and then I'm going to use eyedropper tool, which is an eye. Select this grey tone up at the top corner, select B to go back to the brush tool, and I'm just going to add that stroke in. And that should appear down here now. And if I unsee, yes, I've now got a matching background. And the process of creating this sort of imagery is really simple. You just go up to your grid layer and you use Magic Wand selection tool to select an area from the image, and then you select the image layer and just press delete, and then do Control and D to deselect, and then you go to the layer above again, you select an area, and then you go back down to your image layer and you delete that out, and you can press deselect. Now sometimes you can still leave a little ridge of image. The other option, of course, is just to go to the image layer, use carefully the eraser tool. You'd want the opacity to be set properly on that one. Use the eraser tool, so you'd want for that a hard edged brush. So there's lots of different ways you can go about this, but you can use the eraser tool to do it. So you can see I've used that one. That's another way of doing it. Or the other way, so you could re-add them back if you wanted to, rather than doing those two methods. once you've selected Magic Wand tool, so it's going back to that stage with my history tool. The other one would be once that is going to deselect that, go onto this layer, use your layer masking tool. You all know how to use layer mask now, so remember white stays in, black takes away. Use your brush tool again, hard edged brush, and use it on black. Oh, pardon me, it's on 5000. And then get the right size brush for what you're doing, and then you can take sections out using the layer mask. And so that way you don't have to zoom out or change your selection. You've got to be careful though, you can't do what I just did where you accidentally take more out than you wanted. I'm going to take these 2 squares out. I guess that does help in allowing you to take more than 1 square out at once. And with this one, you probably just want to leave a few areas in that imply detail, so you can still sort of make out different areas of that figure. So let me just zoom out in a moment, just with these few that I've taken out. And that's how you'd work in the style of that artist. Moving on from there, you could look up further works by the same artist. For example, this one where they've taken a section of different coloured squares and used it to conceal parts of the image. You could also take, when you take some of the squares out, it doesn't always have to be the same image underneath it as well. You know, some of you have done double exposures, for example, so you could have it where you take out sections of the image from a face, for example, and show a landscape, or you could use a building and take out sections and show a landscape behind that instead. It depends what your subject matter is. This could also lead you into artists like Rosanna Jones, where she has woven pictures and she's taken sort of full body portraits and close body, like really close up portraits, and mix those together. Or you can see here another one where there is elements of paper cut and weave put together. And even if you look just below this on the same page, the sections where it started to be sections of images where they've been ripped and pulled apart, for example. You could look at weaving 2 portraits either offset or looking in slightly different directions and weave them in the style of an artist like David Samuel Stern. Or you could begin to look at how you could pixelate images and distort certain sections of work like this artist. So this artist, Hayuro Sushi, there is another artist that's really quite similar, just pop down, it's Barbara Balde, who does similar work as well, so there's something you could also consider. Also, other artists that you may take into that do sort of reveals or different sections of images being revealed, Abigail Reynolds. I've pop that in for you now. So Abigail Reynolds does this one where paper cuts into work, and as you open it up, it reveals quite often a juxtaposing image underneath. So that's another artist that could lead from this one. So definitely start to have a think about, even make notes of these artists or research them yourselves. Right, okay, so I'm going to leave you with that for this one. Hopefully you'll get on alright with that tutorial.